Have you ever wondered how the behavior of fish changes in a specific run over the course of a day and watched it from an underwater perspective? 2 weeks ago I viewed underwater along a river from its estuary to headwaters. Now I return to that same river system, but instead of examining several parts of it, I focus on one region and observe how the fish activity changes through the day. I examine underwater the activity around 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 7 p.m., staying in one part of the river to see how the fish change their behavior throughout the course of the day. Now let's get into it and have a look. Here's a quick overhead of the area in the morning. The conditions are 13 degrees Celsius or about 55 degrees Fahrenheit for water temps and about 12 degrees Celsius or 53 degrees Fahrenheit for air temps, and it's about 9 a.m. In the morning, due to the steep canyon walls in the area, there's no sun on the water. Let's quickly see the upper part of the run, but just so you have an idea what it looks like quickly, as I find no fish here. It's nice water, just empty currently. But here I find several whitefish, about 6, that are clustered together by some boulders as we move from the shallow fast water to the deeper water. They're bouncing around a lot in the current, but despite watching them for about 5 minutes, I see no noticeable feeding activity. I suspect these fish are sheltering in a safe spot until more food becomes active as the water warms up a bit. Let's move further downstream. We are 15 feet further along and spot a mid-sized rainbow and some whitefish. There's also a much bigger rainbow in the background, but we'll examine that one later on. For now, I want to watch this rainbow that's closer to us and see what it is doing, eating or not. It has a solid position behind this boulder. I stay with this trout for about 10 minutes. In this time, and I condense it here for time's sake, I see it make about 6 attempts to grab something and about 30 times where it seems to see something of interest and makes a slight move. I see its eyes darting around, its body adjusting as if to intercept some drifting object nearby it, but more often than not, the fish does not make a solid attempt for the item. It only makes an attempt to strike at something maybe about 6 times. That roughly equates to one possible bite every 90 seconds and maybe one look every 20 seconds. In the morning, this fish is more window shopping than it is actually eating something and will probably take your fly, but you might be prepared for a lot of half-hearted attempts, misses, and poor hook sets from a fish that's non-committal, I would say. I think this is what you might expect in the morning on this particular day, but let's move on downstream again. Another 10 feet down or so, we're nearing the slowest and deepest part of the water just before the run shallows up and the tail out forms. This is certainly more whitefish type water with lots of fine gravel. It would also seem to be fry and fingerling territory, young fish smaller than your finger, as we spot an abundance of them here. The whitefish are schooling together in this lower area, but there seems to be very little feeding activity going on. We take a quick glance at the bottom tailout area, but nothing is holding here, and this ends the morning viewing session for now. Now we move on a few hours and return to the waters. It's about 1 p.m. The sun is overhead and shining into the canyon now, showing some sunlight on the run. Water temperature is up to about 14 degrees Celsius or 57 degrees Fahrenheit, and the air is now 21 degrees Celsius or about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. We will skip the head of the run simply because I observe nothing there at this time and drop into the region where it transitions into the first of the deeper water, the transition from the fast to slower water, or less fast anyways. We see 3 fish now by these boulders, whereas in the morning, if you remember, there were about 6 or so clustered together there. But there are more fish in the distance, indicating that they have spread out now. It is certainly different here at Midday, with many of the fish having moved out, and as we drift downstream we will see whitefish scattered here and there. I suspect all these spread out fish are some of those that we would have seen earlier holding together tightly in the morning. This definitely indicates a change in behavior, with the fish becoming much more active during the midday period. Following the run downstream, we move about another 15 feet. We spot several fish here with some fingerlings hanging close to the camera. These are some of the fish we saw earlier in the morning around where we were watching the mid-sized trout feed, or window shopping. They have dropped downstream in the run, maybe 10 to 15 feet, just up from a sunny patch. But notice how they skirt the edges of the sunny area and rarely go into it. The fish are well distributed and more active than they were earlier in the morning, especially the trout. The rainbows are moving quite a bit, though I don't really see them eating that much. Let's watch and see if there's any notable behavior. I can see that the rainbow at the center of the screen is rather active. Here it clearly chases a smaller fingerling past the camera. Not sure if it was an attempt to eat it, but it was certainly objecting to its presence. But the fish are definitely more mobile, active, as the warmer waters increase their metabolism. I watched these fish for about 15 minutes and they are not feeding fast, but I do notice that when they do feed, it's with far more movement, as if they're willing to expend more energy for a bigger item, or they're hungry but there are fewer food sources coming close to them. A willingness to chase a couple of feet perhaps even. Notice too how spread out the fish are. They move around a bit, but each has its own space. Now let's check in with that bigger fish before moving to the evening. It's in about the same spot as it was in the morning. And where it was really about 2 weeks ago in the last video. It's really hardly moved. It's partly in the sun, partly in the shade. And here we see now where it actually rolls on its side and goes after something rather casually. Despite all the sun around it, it does look like to me it's trying to stay in the shady patches, or at least keep its head in those shady spots. However, I do honestly suspect my camera is drawing its attention and distracting it, so I won't stay too long on it. I also believe it's recovering from earlier spawning, maybe last month, and trying to regain its strength, so another reason to try and observe from afar. But let's break away now and come back for an evening session. I've returned back to the river about 7 p.m. The sun is fully off the water now, and what you're seeing is more just a reflection from the cloudy skies above. The water is 15 degrees Celsius or 59 degrees Fahrenheit, and the air is cooled to about 19 degrees Celsius. Again, I'll completely skip the head and taillet section of the run as I found still both barren of any fish. We start, as we did before, near the top of the middle section where a couple of good boulders are. There's roughly about 12 whitefish clustered between the boulders, more than we've seen in any other times of the day so far. As we watch, there's some feeding going on, especially by the lead fish, but these fish are jam-packed like sardines. I don't believe they're really here to feed that much. I think they've gathered together more for shelter and security, or cover, than anything else. I'm sure they will take the time to feed if it presents itself, but I don't think they're going to be going too far to do so. I'd say a good number of the whitefish we saw earlier have all come back here to rest where there's safety in numbers. They're probably well fed. Now let's move along downstream for a bit. I come upon a rainbow. It might be the same one we were watching before, but I can't be sure as there were several in the area in that middle section of the run. But I watched this fish for about 10 minutes and observed the feeding behavior. In that time, I saw this feed more times than I could count, on average probably every 10 to 15 seconds, and virtually all that time I never saw the fish move far or rise up or change much about its position. Food was coming to it directly and with little effort expended by the fish. This is quite the contrast to earlier in the morning or in the afternoon when feeding activity was much different if you recall. Evening time was certainly the most productive time for the trout this day. And let's check on that bigger rainbow one more time. And there it is. What a beautiful fish. You may have noticed as I have that this fish, although large and bulky, appears to have a discoloration along its dorsal area. I can't actually tell what it is. It isn't a wound like we've seen on other fish, and it doesn't seem to be a fungus or an ulcer. Nor does it appear to be fishing net or line damage, which is usually more distinctive as lines of abrasion, or it's not even scale damage, I think. It might just be a natural discoloration, or perhaps maybe it is a bacterial infection, but I may return to this fish in the future to check on it to see if it stays around. If anyone has any ideas though, please feel free to leave a suggestion in the comments section. Right now, we'll leave this fish to its own devices. Now let's make a brief summary of this video. First off, not every river is going to be like this, nor may it be consistent or identical day after day on this very river. Today was a snapshot of one day and only a few hours during that day, so it was by no means definitive, but it does suggest the following regarding the feeding behavior and holding positions of fish. In the morning, while the waters were relatively cool still, the fish were feeding, albeit half-heartedly and with numerous missed attempts. Their feeding behavior was not aggressive, but more casual, and in many cases the fish were sitting more tightly together. By midday, the water temperatures had risen 1 or 2 degrees, but food sources seemed more scarce. The warmer temperatures boosted the fish's metabolism, giving them an eagerness to move and chase any potential food, as scant as it was. The fish were also more spread out, as if each was picking its own space to sit. And in the evening, the water warmed up a tad more, which could encourage more activity, but it seemed like the food sources also became more available, and the fish consequently did not have to move as much to get what they needed. Being energy conservationists, they sat in place, didn't chase much, and saved energy as the food came to them. If we turn to discussing what fishing strategies might work, well, on this day, fishing streamers for opportunistic fish around midday in the shady regions around the sunny patches would produce well. There wasn't much for food at that time, yet the fish were eager to give chase. Great opportunity for bigger ticket items like streamers. In the morning, the fish had not turned on yet, to coin an expression. This implied that a good strategy would have been to fish patiently, cover the water multiple times, and expect a number of mistakes or even poorly hooked fish. In the evening, the fish likely had more available food to them, implying they might be more finicky and you might have to make sure your fly size is fairly similar to the naturals, and that you're fishing consistently at the depth the fish may not be moving away from much. Overall, I hope the information you found in this video has been helpful and you will come back for the next video as well. Thank you for taking the time to watch.